What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for AnimeUproar, and in this video, I will be breaking down the full, tragic, and inspirational backstories of all the Hashira in the Demon Slayer story. The Hashira are some of the strongest and most epic characters in the entire series, and to a large extent, their backstories made these characters into who they are today. Now, you will have everything you need to know about all their backstories right here in one place, so let's get into it. If you guys enjoy our Demon Slayer content and you want to see more in the future, just leave a quick like and comment. It only takes a second, but it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new to the channel, or maybe you watch our videos, but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a quick favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. A quick thank you to the Likewise app for sponsoring this video. Likewise is an incredibly useful app that takes all the hassle out of finding great anime, movie, TV, and book recommendations. Instead of wasting your time Googling recommendations and then trying to figure out where you can actually watch them, just get the Likewise app for free. Powered by a combination of smart technology and recommendations from real people, the Likewise app will give you the best recommendations quickly. All you have to do is tell the app the genres and titles you enjoy, and Likewise gives you personalized recommendations. They also show you which streaming service is streaming them. Their algorithm will give you a bunch of new recommendations based on the shows or movies or books that you've already enjoyed, including new recommendations every single day. And if your tastes are very specific, you can just ask directly in the app. There's a group called the Anime Lounge that features a ton of great anime recommendations. The other day I saw someone asking for anime similar to Anohana, so I recommended AngelBeats and Clannad. Before I knew it, there were over a dozen great recommendations on that single post. It's that easy. This app is super useful and saves a lot of time, so click that top link in the description to download the Likewise app for free. Again, it's 100% free, so click that link right now. Finally, this video will contain manga spoilers specifically regarding the Hashira backstories. I won't tell you what happens to the Hashira later on in the story, but I will tell you their past, so please be advised. Let's start things off with the first Hashira that we meet in the Demon Slayer story, Giu Tomioka. We meet him right in chapter 1 of the manga and episode 1 of the anime when he attacks Demon Nezuko while Tanjiro is attempting to get through to her and calm her down. Giu intends to kill Nezuko as killing demons is his job, but Tanjiro begs and pleads with him not to kill her because he believes that there must be a way to turn her back to normal. After all, Nezuko never consumed any human flesh, so there could still be hope for her. Giu thinks that the idea of trying to turn a demon back into a human is ridiculous. Once someone becomes a demon, there is no cure for them, and the only acceptable course of action is to kill the demon so they can't go on to hurt innocent people in the future. Tanjiro then tries to physically stop Giu from hurting Nezuko, but his attacks are easily dealt with by Giu. However, that is when something strange happens. Nezuko, the demon, intervenes in order to protect her human brother from the Hashira. Giu is shocked that a demon, especially one who was turned recently, would protect a human instead of devouring them in order to get stronger after the draining transformation process. Following a serious inner conflict, Giu decides to do the unthinkable. He spares Nezuko's life. When first watching this scene, we don't really understand the gravity of this decision, but the more we learn about the Demon Slayer Corps and the Hashira, the more meaningful and surprising Giyu's decision turns out to be. For a Demon Slayer to spare a demon in this way is practically unheard of, and this is even more true for a Hashira. When all the Hashira assemble for Tanjiro and Nezuko's trial, we see exactly how disturbed they are by Giyu's decision. Most of them want to kill Nezuko immediately, and even the thought of doing otherwise seems completely insane to them. But Giu stands by his decision and even goes so far as to promise that he, Tanjiro, and former Hashira Sakonji Urokudaki will all forfeit their lives if Nezuko ever attacks a human. So, what led Giu to make such an unusual decision and to then stake his own life and the life of his master on the outcome of that decision? After all, if Giu hadn't made this decision, then the whole story of Demon Slayer would have been completely different. Without Giyu's difficult choice, there would be no Demon Slayer as we know it, and that is where Giyu's backstory comes in. In chapter 130 of the manga, we get a moment where Tanjiro realizes that Giu is kind of mad at him. When Tanjiro asks why, Giu says he's disappointed that Tanjiro has been focusing on Hino Kamikagura instead of trying to perfect water breathing in order to become the water Hashira. When Tanjiro says that there is already a water Hashira, and that is of course Giu, Giu says that no, there is no water Hashira right now because he is not the Water Hashira. Giu doesn't want to explain what he means by this at first, but after Tanjiro keeps pushing for days and days, Giu finally reveals that he never passed his final selection. Well, he did technically pass, but not in the way that he would have wanted to. Giu participated in the final selection along with a boy named Sabito. They were both 13 at the time, and they had both lost their families to demons. They quickly became friends, but then, despite the fact that Sabito was the one who killed all the demons on that mountain, everyone but Sabito passed the exam. Sabito didn't pass because he was the only one who died during that particular final selection. Gyu's own performance at that final selection was practically the opposite of Sabito. Giu was injured by the very first demon that he had encountered, and that demon's attack left him in a daze. Sabito then came to his rescue, and he entrusted Giu to another boy before going off to help others who were crying out for help. By the time Giu recovered from his injury, the final selection was over. He technically passed because he survived, but Sabito, the boy who rescued him, did not survive. Because of this, Giu doesn't consider himself to be a legitimate Hashira since he doesn't feel like he truly passed his final selection. How could someone who hadn't even defeated a single demon and had to be rescued by another person say that they passed? Basically, Giu has a sort of imposter syndrome when it comes to the other Hashira. Despite being extremely strong, he doesn't consider himself to be worthy of standing side by side with the others. He feels that the other Hashira have all earned their position, but he has not. So he sees himself as an imposter, a fake Water Hashira, and he was hoping that Tanjiro would eventually replace him by becoming a worthy Water Hashira in his stead. Now, of course, Tanjiro knows Sabito because he had actually met him during training for his own final selection. Well, sort of. The souls of Sabito and Makomo, who were both killed by demons after being taken in and trained by Sakonji Urokudaki, appeared on Mount Sagiri and they helped prepare Tanjiro for his final selection. After taking in everything that Giu had said, Tanjiro realizes how Giu must feel. Giu feels that he should have died instead of Sabito because if Sabito had lived, then he would have potentially become a much better demon slayer than Giu. Tanjiro felt the same way after Rengoku died protecting him. He felt that if he had died instead of Rengoku, then Rengoku could have gone on to do so many amazing things, maybe even defeat Muzan once and for all. But Tanjiro also remembers what Inosuke had said to him after Rengoku's death. Rengoku believed in them, so they don't have to worry about anything other than living up to that. Tanjiro says something similar to Giu. He tells him to make use of the gift that Sabito gave him by saving his life. Giu then remembers an exchange he had with Sabito, an exchange in which Sabito smacked him after Giu had said that he wishes he would have been killed by a demon instead of his sister. It turns out that Gyu's older sister was preparing for her wedding, which was to take place the next day, but when a demon attacked, she sacrificed her own life in order to protect Giu. Sabito tells Giu to never disrespect his sister's death by saying what he just said. He must stay alive because his sister sacrificed her life to give him a future. The name of Gyu's sister was Giu Tomioka, and her death was so hard on him to deal with that he had blocked it out of his mind. So this means that Giu lost two people he was close to because they sacrificed themselves in order to protect him. No wonder he has an inferiority complex. People kept giving up their own life to save him, but he couldn't do anything to protect them. According to the Demon Slayer fanbook, since the existence of demons is not public knowledge, when Giu told everyone that his sister was killed by a demon, people thought he was mentally disturbed and he was sent away to one of his relatives who practiced medicine. Giu ran away before arriving at the relative's house, and he almost died out there in the wilderness. Thankfully, he was found by a hunter who was friends with Sakonji, and so Giu was placed in Sakonji's care. The Giu guide and extra chapters revealed that after Gyu's encounter with Tanjiro and Nezuko, some people suspected that Giu was the one who slaughtered the Kamado family because he had been spotted in the area. Again, they didn't realize that a demon did it because they don't know that demons exist, so they blamed Giu. I think that Gyu's rough past may have contributed to his decision to ultimately spare Nezuko's life. The fact that he feels unworthy of being a Hashira makes him less sure of himself than a regular Hashira may be. And so he is more likely to be open-minded and second-guess himself. Every demon slayer's first instinct is to kill every demon, and most Hashira wouldn't think twice about it. But because Giu doesn't think highly of himself and of his own decision-making abilities, he was open-minded enough to give Nezuko a chance, and that is what set the entire Demon Slayer adventure in motion. Personally, I think that Giu has more than earned his place as one of the Hashira, and he is one of the strongest characters in Demon Slayer. But at the same time, I can definitely see where he's coming from. There's no way for him to go back and redo the moments in his life where others died to protect him and he couldn't do anything to help them. So that is something that has stayed with him for a long time. Next, let's talk about our boy, the fiery Chad, Kyojiro Rengoku. Kyojiro is the son of the former flame Hashira Shinjuro, and he takes great pride in his duties as one of the strongest demon slayers. But even though Rengoku is the son of the former flame Hashira, his father Shinjuro has been anything but supportive. Throughout his childhood, Rengoku's father constantly told him that he had no talent and that he would never become the next flame Hashira. Rengoku's father also drank frequently, and he could be downright abusive to his two sons. Although Rengoku's mother was a much gentler person than his father, she unfortunately died when Rengoku was still quite young. Although Rengoku agreed with his father that he didn't have any special natural talents, he forced himself to train hard and become strong. Even though his father kept telling him to just quit and focus on becoming something other than a Hashira, Rengoku refused to listen and he did eventually become the new Flame Hashira. Rengoku clearly did not inherit his father's personality because he was always very kind and supportive of his younger brother Senjuro. Not only did Rengoku refuse to allow his father's constant criticism to bring him down, but he also did his best to bring other people up, including his younger brother. As a result, Senjuro looked up to his older brother and saw him as an important source of inspiration in his own life. Since Senjuro also had to deal with their father's abuse and criticism, the fact that he could count on his older brother's support meant a great deal to him. Before she died, his mother Ruka told him that as someone who is strong, Rengoku has a duty to protect those who are weaker than him. And so, Rengoku committed himself to saving innocent people from the demons. In a special one-shot manga chapter that came out after the main Demon Slayer manga ended, we got to see what happened during Rengoku's very first mission as a Demon Slayer before he ever became a Hashira. This early chapter of Rengoku's life is very important for understanding his character. When he is dispatched on his first mission, Rengoku encounters a flute demon who by that point had already murdered 9 of Rengoku's Demon Slayer comrades. He had also taken the lives of a group of children, and he was about to take the life of another child when Rengoku arrived. Faced with the sight of all of those corpses, Rengoku was forced to accept the tragic reality about how fragile human life is and how cruel and ruthless the demons can be. This flute demon is truly a monster, and he has a powerful blood demon art which makes him almost impossible to fight. Basically, anyone who hears the sound of the demon's flute has their entire nervous system thrown out of whack, so it is impossible to move and fight properly while hearing the sound of the demon's flute. One option for Rengoku is to cover both of his ears with his hands, but if he does that, then he cannot use his swords, and if he can't use his swords, then he cannot defeat the demon. So Rengoku is backed into a corner. If he uses his sword, his nervous system will be disrupted and he won't be able to fight, but if he keeps his ears covered, he still won't be able to fight because he can't use his sword. And if that wasn't bad enough, the demon is also able to use his flute to summon deadly wolves, and these wolves are going to devour Rengoku if he doesn't find some way to fight back. The demon begins to mock Rengoku and the Demon Slayers as a whole. All of those years of Demon Slayer training have been rendered completely useless by the effects of his flute. The Demon Slayers seem powerless against him. But Rengoku then proceeds to do something that cements his status as an absolute Chad and something that the flute demon couldn't anticipate. Rengoku hits his own ears so hard that he ruptures his own eardrums. This temporarily disrupts his ability to hear, which allows him to use his sword to take the demon down. Rengoku kills the demon, and he saves the innocent child whose life had been in danger. And then, after that unbelievable ordeal that he had just gone through, Rengoku actually smiles. He smiles through the pain because he wants to reassure the surviving child that everything is going to be alright. Rengoku also expresses gratitude to all of his fallen comrades. It turns out that as they died, the other Demon Slayers used sign language to secretly reveal the nature of the Flute Demon's power to Rengoku. When Rengoku arrived, he saw the message that his comrades were trying to convey, and that is how he was able to figure out an effective strategy to take the Flute Demon down. Rengoku vows to one day become as admirable as his fallen comrades. This moment and Rengoku's behavior throughout this entire mission showcases so perfectly what kind of valiant warrior he is. He thinks outside the box, he sacrifices his own body in order to save the innocent, and he is able to smile through the pain for the sake of others. Rengoku certainly lived up to the promise that he made to his mother, the promise to do everything to protect those who were weaker than him. Just like Giu, Rengoku also got 2 extra Gaiden chapters that reveal more about his backstory and how he earned the position of Flame Hashira. But because these chapters also place a heavy focus on the love Hashira Mitsuri, I will talk about them when I cover Mitsuri's backstory, which is right now. Mitsuri Kanroji is the love Hashira, and she uses her own custom breathing style called love breathing. That said, love breathing is actually a derivative of flame breathing, which she learned from Rengoku. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but first let's talk about Mitsuri's early life, which greatly shaped the person that she eventually became. Mitsuri was born in a family of 5 children, and her entire family seems to get along well. When Tanjiro first asks her why she became a Hashira, she tells him that she did it because she wanted to find a man to marry. This might sound weird at first, but once we consider Mitsuri's backstory, it all starts to make sense. Ever since she was very young, Mitsuri ate a lot more than the average person, and she became much stronger than the average person. In fact, her body itself is unique. It is much more flexible than the normal human body, and she has 8 times more muscle density than the average human. As a result, Mitsuri has always been freakishly strong, and because she is a woman, this strength made her an outcast in the extremely traditional society that she grew up in. Oh, and her unique hair color didn't help much either. She has pink hair, which is apparently the result of her eating too much sakura mochi. As funny as that may sound, it still made her stand out even more from the rest of society. At the age of 17, Mitsuri was engaged to be married, but the arrangement was called off when her husband-to-be decided that she was too weird because of her hair color and strange physique. And so he said that he didn't want to pass those genes to their children. What an absolute moron! Like, yeah, I know this video is supposed to be more about facts and information than my own personal opinions, but man, what an absolute moron! Anyway, even though that guy was a complete and utter fool, this incident had a profound effect on Mitsuri. And of course, we can't blame her. Being rejected by her husband-to-be in such a traditional society would put her and her family in a difficult situation. So, after her engagement was broken off, Mitsuri decided to completely change herself in order to fit in with the rest of society. She actually dyed her pink hair black, she pretended to be weak, and she ate much less than she needed to so that people wouldn't be intimidated by her massive appetite. As a result, she was often so malnourished that she would faint. Although the changes that she made didn't make Mitsuri fit in with the rest of society and potential suitors became interested in her again, she just didn't feel right. She felt like she wasn't being true to herself and that the life she was leading was a lie. Thankfully, Mitsuri met Kagaya Ubuyashiki, the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, also known as Oyakata-sama. Rather than thinking that her freakish strength made her weird, Oyakata-sama was amazed by it, and he told her that it was a gift from the gods. Anyone who speaks ill of her talents must just be jealous, and there is nothing wrong with a girl who is strong. In Oyakata-sama and the Demon Slayers, Mitsuri finally found true acceptance, and she was finally able to be herself again. Not only that, but she could use her incredible physical talents to fight demons and save innocent people. Oh, and back to the marriage question, becoming a Demon Slayer meant that Mitsuri would be around a lot of extremely strong men, so she could finally find a man to marry who was stronger than her, so he wouldn't be intimidated by her own strength. This plan didn't work out so well though, because Mitsuri quickly advanced through the Demon Slayer ranks and became a Hashira. This meant that even within the Demon Slayers, very few men were actually stronger than her. Before she became a Hashira, Mitsuri was trained by Kyojiro Rengoku. She learned his flame-breathing style of swordsmanship, but she later modified it into her own custom style known as love breathing. Love breathing is unique because it takes full advantage of Mitsuri's special physique, including her superhuman flexibility and incredible muscle density. In the Rengoku Gaiden chapters, we get a glimpse of Rengoku training Mitsuri, and we even get to see the moment Mitsuri gets her first official Demon Slayer uniform. And yes, it is definitely a perfectly normal regulation Demon Slayer uniform. Soon after that, all the Hashira are summoned by Oyakata-sama. By this point, Kyojiro Rengoku's father Shinjuro had already given up on being a Hashira. After the death of his wife, he began drinking heavily, and he lost the will to fight. As a result, he refuses to answer Oyakata-sama's summons for all the Hashira. And so, Kyojiro Rengoku decides to go instead of his father, despite the fact that he is still not the Flame Hashira at this point in time. After Rengoku expresses his desire to become the next Flame Hashira at the Hashira meeting, Oyakata-sama gives him the opportunity to prove himself worthy by defeating Lower Moon 2 Hairo, a demon who has been threatening the capital city of Tokyo. Rengoku takes Mitsuri on this mission with him, and this is the first mission that they ever go on together. Mitsuri is able to learn a lot from Rengoku during this battle, not just in terms of fighting, but also in terms of character. Rengoku is also an outcast as far as social expectations go. He also has extremely unusual hair, his clothes are unconventional, he carries a sword everywhere he goes, and so on. Since they have to travel to Tokyo, which is full of people, Rengoku gets quite a few comments about being strange and weird and scary. But he just brushes them off in stride and continues to smile and to do his job. This inspires Mitsuri to follow in Rengoku's footsteps. It is during the fight against Lower Moon 2 Hairo that Mitsuri begins to develop her own unique breathing style, the Breath of Love, which was of course greatly inspired by Rengoku's flame breathing. Ultimately, Hairo falls after an epic battle against the burning determination of Rengoku, and as a result, Kyojiro replaces his father Shinjiro as the Flame Hashira. Meanwhile, Mitsuri has finally found a place where she can be herself and people that accept her for who she is. This allows her to tap into her full potential, and eventually she too becomes a Hashira. Since we just talked about Mitsuri, let's talk about the man who is clearly in love with her, the Serpent Hashira, Obanai Iguro. Just like Mitsuri, Iguro carries a lot of personal baggage and he has serious confidence issues. In fact, he feels that he isn't worthy of Mitsuri because his bloodline is corrupt and impure. For centuries, his family only seemed to be giving birth to girls, and Iguro appeared to have been the only boy who was born into the family in like 370 years. Once he was born, he was confined to a prison cell where he was fawned over by his mother, sisters, and aunts, and brought rich foods to eat every single day. Iguro eventually learned that his entire family worshipped a female demon who was half human and half snake. And he also learned that they had been feeding their own offspring to this demon as sacrifices. In return, the demon made the family rich by giving them the valuables of all the other humans that she killed. Because Iguro was born with unusual eyes, the snake demon took a liking to him and she decided that she wouldn't eat him as a baby. Instead, she apparently decided that she would wait until he was older and fatten him up. She also had his mouth sliced so that it would more closely resemble her own snake mouth. Thankfully, before he could be eaten, Iguro managed to escape his cell and run away. The snake demon tried to capture him, but she was killed by the former Flame Hashira, Shinjiro Rengoku, who at the time was the current Flame Hashira. Before she was killed, the snake demon took out nearly everyone in Iguro's large family because they failed to prevent his escape. And so, Iguro continued to carry the burden of his family's sins as well as the death of most of his family members for his entire life. He had decided long ago that he wanted to die defeating Muzan in order to purify the filthy blood of his family. And so he trained hard to become a demon slayer and a Hashira, even though deep down he considered himself to be weak and unworthy. But if he were to be one day reborn as a human in a peaceful world without demons, he would then finally confess his true feelings for Mitsuri. There are a ton of interesting Buddhist and Hinduist influences to Iguro's backstory, including the idea of purifying oneself, karma, and being reincarnated into a better life. But I don't want to get too deeply into that because this is already going to be a very long video. The important thing to take away from all of this is that, just like Mitsuri, Iguro always thought of himself as an outcast who would never be accepted by society. Part of it was because of his unconventional upbringing, part of it was the sins of his bloodline, and part of it was his physical appearance because his face had been scarred by the snake demon. And of course, he also had those unique eyes. And yet, within the Demon Slayer core, Iguro found a place to belong, he found people who accepted him, and he even found love. The Demon Slayers were able to recognize true talent and potential in people who were rejected and looked down upon by society, and that is in no small part due to how kind, compassionate, and open-minded Oyakata-sama is. Next up, let's talk about the star of the Entertainment District arc, the Giga Chad, Tengen Uzui. Tengen comes from a shinobi or ninja family, and he was one of 9 siblings. His family was extremely committed to the shinobi way of life, and 3 of his siblings died before they even reached the age of 10 due to the extreme ninja training methods that they were put through. And that is not even the worst part. The remaining 6 siblings, including Tengen, were essentially forced to fight each other to the death by their own father. Apparently, all of the siblings were made to wear masks during the fight, so they didn't even know whom they were fighting. Tengen only realized what was really going on after he had already killed 2 of his own brothers. In the end, only Tengen and 1 other brother survived. And while Tengen's last surviving brother accepted their father's belief that shinobi must be willing to commit even the harshest acts in order to protect their clan, Tengen simply could not accept this horrible mindset. He decided to abandon his clan, and he left the shinobi village of his birth along with his 3 hot ninja wives. You see, the Uzui family practiced polygamy, and so Tengen was forced to go through an arranged marriage with 3 kunoichi women who were chosen by the head of their shinobi clan. After they left their clan, Tengen encouraged his wives to completely reevaluate their most fundamental values. From a very young age, shinobi are taught to place their clan and their mission above all other things, including their own lives. If a shinobi must sacrifice their life in order to complete a mission, then so be it. That should be considered an honor. However, after abandoning his clan, Tengen also abandoned those values. He encouraged his wives to value themselves and their own lives over any mission, which proves that Tengen really cares about his wives and that he values the sanctity of human life over clan loyalties. He even considered exterminating his former clan in order to prevent them from committing more evil deeds, but in the end he just couldn't bring himself to go through with killing his own father and brother. After leaving the Uzui clan, Tengen met Oyakata-sama and he joined the Demon Slayer Corps. He climbed the ranks of the organization until he eventually became the Sound Hashira. Tengen has an immense amount of respect for Oyakata-sama, and he would be happy to lay down his own life for the leader of the Demon Slayers. Tengen is such an interesting character because despite abandoning his clan, which is the biggest sin and the greatest dishonor for a shinobi, he remained a valiant and honorable man. But he has a completely different code of honor from his father and brother. Instead of valuing his clan above everything else and trying to make the clan stronger by any means necessary, Tengen values justice and protecting the innocent. He would happily give up his own life for a noble cause like that one, but he will not fight for a cause that he doesn't believe in just because that is what's expected of him by tradition and the society he grew up in. Despite the fact that he is likely considered to be a traitor and a coward by his clan members, he is actually a truly honorable and brave warrior. For Tengen, real honor and real bravery is fighting for a just cause, and he believes that the Demon Slayers have the most just cause of all, protecting the innocent from vicious demons. Now, let's talk about the insect Hashira Shinobu Kocho. Shinobu had an older sister named Kanae, and they were both raised in a loving home by their parents. According to the second Demon Slayer fanbook, her parents worked in compounding medicine, which I think means that they mixed medical ingredients together to create specific medicines for individual people. Unfortunately, one day their parents were killed by a demon. This same demon was about to kill Shinobu and Kanae as well, but thankfully they were rescued by the stone Hashira Gyome Himejima. The tragic loss of their parents had a profound effect on the two sisters, and they both vowed to become Demon Slayers just like the man who rescued them. They both wanted to become stronger so that they could protect each other, and so they could spare other families from suffering the same fate as their family. Kanae eventually became the Flower Hashira, and Shinobu stuck close to her sister and learned a lot from her. One day while traveling, Kanae and Shinobu came across a little girl that was being treated like a slave. They freed the girl from her captor and took her back to the Butterfly Mansion where they essentially adopted her. They named the girl Kanao, and this is of course the same Kanao who is Shinobu's current Tsuguko or apprentice. Some years later, when Shinobu was 14 and Kanae was 17, Kanae engaged in battle against Upper Moon 2, Doma. Kanae was mortally wounded during this battle, but Doma couldn't finish her off because the sun was about to come out and so he decided to flee. In chapter 141, we get a quick flashback to Kanae's death, and we see that Shinobu arrived on the scene in time to say goodbye to her sister. Before she passes away, Kanae tells Shinobu to leave the Demon Slayer Corps so she could grow old and be happy, and so she could just live out a normal life. But Shinobu refuses to quit, and instead she vows to avenge her sister by killing the demon who killed her. After Kanae's death, Shinobu succeeds her sister as the master of the Butterfly Estate. From that point forward, Shinobu becomes even more determined to destroy the demons, and especially Upper Moon 2 Doma. Upon meeting Shinobu, Tanjiro can tell that something is off about her otherwise calm demeanor. He can tell that she is hiding a lot of anger inside of her. Tanjiro is indeed correct. Shinobu has always been angry. Her parents were killed by demons, her older sister was killed by demons, and all her apprentices except for Kanao were also killed by demons. These demons killed so many innocent people, they destroyed so many families, and Shinobu has been absolutely furious about it for a very long time. This fury is what drives her to seek justice at all costs. Next up, let's talk about Shinobu's savior and the strongest Hashira, the stone pillar Gyome Himejima. Before he became a demon slayer, Gyome was a blind monk who raised 9 orphans inside a temple. Although they didn't have much, they took care of each other and lived together as a family. But one night, one of the children broke the rules of the temple and didn't return home before dark. That child was captured by a demon in the forest and was about to be eaten. In order to save himself, he made a deal with the demon. If the demon spares his life, he will lead him to the other 8 children at the temple. Since this area was known for demon activity, Gyome had taken precautions and he burned wisteria flower incense every night to keep the demons away. But the orphan who made the deal with the demon extinguished the incense so that the demon would be able to enter the temple. 4 of the children were taken out instantly, and Gyome tried to protect the other 4, but since he was blind and not nearly as strong as he is now, 3 of the children ran off on their own instead of hiding behind him, and unfortunately those 3 children fell victim to the demon. When the demon finally came for Gyome and the final child, Gyome decided that he had to fight back. Despite being a monk who hated violence, he began fighting the demon with his bare hands, and he just kept on punching him like a madman until the sun came out and the demon was killed. The big scar on Gyome's forehead came from this fight against a demon. Now again, because most people didn't believe in demons, and since the demon's body disintegrated once the sun came out, when the last surviving child who was only 4 years old tried to explain the situation to the authorities, they thought the child was telling them that Gyome went crazy and killed all the children. So, despite being the one who defeated the demon and protected the last surviving child, Gyome was arrested for murder. He was going to be executed, but thankfully Oyakata-sama was able to rescue him and he recruited him into the Demon Slayer Corps. Since then, Gyome has been training relentlessly and he has achieved peak physical condition. He has developed his physical body to the highest possible extent, and that is why he has earned the title of the strongest Hashira. Now let's talk about the youngest Hashira, the 14-year-old mist Hashira Muichiro Tokito. Muichiro had a twin brother named Yuichiro, and their father was a humble woodcutter. At age 10, they lost their mother to pneumonia, and they tragically lost their father around the same time. He had actually gone to pick medicinal herbs for their sick mother during a storm, and he slipped and fell off a cliff. The 2 10-year-old twins then suddenly found themselves living alone as orphans. Yuichiro was the slightly older brother, and he developed a cynical outlook on life. He thought that their father was foolish to go out in that storm in an attempt to help their mother. By that point, her condition was already too severe for some herbs to help her, and if their father had just stayed home that night, then only their mother would have died instead of both of them. Muichiro was more compassionate and sentimental, and he disagreed with his brother's outlook on life. The following year, when the brothers were around 11, Oyakata-sama's wife came to visit them at their home. She told them that they were descendants of legendary swordsmen, and that one of their ancestors was the original Breath of the Sun user. She wanted the 2 of them to become demon slayers, but Yuichiro turned her away. He did not want them to risk their own lives trying to help others, because if they did that, then they would just end up like their father. Yuichiro simply did not trust the demon slayers or anyone else, and he refused to foolishly risk his own life. Then, one night, a demon found their home and attacked them. Yuichiro was severely injured, and suddenly Muichiro snapped. He used his woodcutting axes and every other tool at his disposal to cut up the demon and keep him that way until the sun came out and killed him. When he finally returned to the house, Muichiro found his brother praying to the gods and Buddhas to spare Muichiro's life because, unlike Yuichiro, Muichiro had a kind heart and he wanted to help others. Yuichiro would ultimately die in his brother's arms. Eventually, Oyakata-sama's wife returned and she was able to heal Muichiro and save his life. Muichiro then joined the Demon Slayer Corps, and the trauma he experienced blocked out most memories that he had of his former life. Due to his legendary lineage and his incredible talent, Muichiro quickly rose through the ranks of the Demon Slayers, and he became a Hashira only 2 months after joining the Demon Slayer Corps. It is hard to even imagine what an insane achievement that is. Due to the mix of trauma and memory loss that Muichiro experienced, his personality began to resemble that of his older brother Yuichiro. Instead of his usual compassionate and idealistic self, he became more cold and distant. He also felt a deep-seated anger towards the demons, and this anger motivated him to keep doing his best to hunt them all down. Finally, let's talk about the Wind Hashira, Sunemi Shinazugawa. Sunemi was the eldest of 7 children, which included his younger brother Genya. Their father was abusive to his wife and his children, and his mother would often sacrifice herself in order to shield her children from her husband's attacks. One day, Sunemi's father died after being stabbed by someone he had gotten into a fight with, and Sunemi didn't even feel sorry for his father. He felt that his father got exactly what he deserved. After their father's death, Sunemi and Genya tried to take responsibility for taking care of their family. Since their mother was kind and compassionate, things seemed to be going well for a while. But then, as is so often the case with Demon Slayer, another tragedy struck. One day when their mother didn't come home on time, Sunemi went out to look for her. While Genya was in charge of taking care of the children, the household was attacked by a demon, and everyone except for Genya was killed. Sunemi then showed up and killed the demon, but that demon turned out to be their mother. At first, Genya was in shock and he didn't understand what happened, and he lashed out at Sunemi for killing their mother. Genya would come to regret this later when he actually came to terms with what really happened, but by then Sunemi had already abandoned him and dedicated his life to hunting down demons. Sunemi didn't even know that the Demon Slayers existed, and he didn't even know about Nichiren blades. So he just used whatever weapons he could find, and he would find demons, trap them, and then burn them in the sunlight. He was like a one-man anti-demon vigilante squad, and his actions were so wild and reckless that he later thought that he might have been indirectly trying to end his own life. But he got lucky because he possessed an extremely rare and special blood type called Marechi. This blood is especially intoxicating to demons, and it distracts them and slows them down, which allowed Sunemi to get the jump on them. During one of his demon hunts, he met an actual demon slayer named Masachika Kumeno, and he recruited Sunemi into the Demon Slayer Corps. Sunemi and Masachika became friends, and they both wanted to become Hashira. Together they defeated a Lower Moon 1, but Masachika died during that battle, and so only Sunemi was able to go on to become a Hashira. The death of Masachika made Sunemi angry, and he took that anger out on Oyakata-sama. Sunemi felt that as the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, he was just giving out orders while others were risking their life on his behalf. But to Sunemi's surprise, Oyakata-sama took the criticism gracefully, and he even apologized. He explained that his body is simply not suited for fighting. He tried to do it before, but he failed miserably because of his physical limitations. Oyakata-sama also expresses regret for the loss of Masachika, and he knows that Sunemi and Masachika were close like brothers. Oyakata-sama's kind face reminds Sunemi of his mother before she became a demon, and the fact that Oyakata-sama goes out of his way to know and memorize the names of every single Demon Slayer who fell in battle gives Sunemi a newfound respect for the leader of the Demon Slayers. The loss of Masachika and the will that his friend left for Sunemi also remind Sunemi that he still has a brother out there, Genya. And although Sunemi continues to be a loose cannon throughout the series, he definitely calms down a bit and he stops being completely reckless with his own life. And that is it, the full backstory of every Hashira in the Demon Slayer story. These were of course the current Hashira that we meet at the beginning of the story, and although we know a bit about the former Hashira like Shinjuro, Sakonji, and Jigoro, we don't know anything about them before they became Hashira. So because of that, it's not really possible to cover their backstories. And of course, Kanae's backstory is the same as Shinobu's. If you're looking for a video to watch next, check out my video that breaks down the deaths of all the Hashira who died in battle during the course of the series. I will link it in the description. Let me know down in the comments which Hashira has the best backstory in your opinion, and who is your favorite Hashira overall, including current and former Hashira. I look forward to hearing from you. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more Demon Slayer content on the channel, leave a quick like. It only takes a second, but it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new here or you watch our videos but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a quick favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. Thanks again to the Likewise app for sponsoring this video. Check it out, link in the description. It's totally free and super useful. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.